Alright, once again, coming to you from home. This is Billy Collins' Introduction to Poetry. This is probably one of the first ones that I'd like you to read. If you've read a couple before now, it's okay. We're just going to go ahead and go over it real quick. If you turn a page back, we're on page 590 in our green book. We have suggestions for approaching poetry on the page before. If you haven't read that over, it's 12 steps. It's excellent. Okay? But go ahead, like all the other poems, I need you to go ahead and go read these on your own. Once out loud, or twice out loud, and then a couple times silent. Really get a feel for the poem and then come back. Okay, I hope you're back. We've printed it out. We've been able to read it a couple times. I like Billy Collins. Billy Collins is one of my favorite contemporary poets. He was born in 1941. Like many poets, they are English teachers. Okay, he really knew what it was like to teach poetry. He really knew what it was like to sit in a class and talk to students. That's why I like him. He has a lot of nice things to say about poetry, a lot of funny metaphors, and is really relatable to anybody studying poetry, no matter how old. Okay, so this is an introduction to poetry. It's like the title of a college class. So right away you think, okay, what's this about? Now, this is one big metaphor for how you should be analyzing poetry. And the first couple of stanzas are about how he wants you to analyze poetry, about how it should be done. And then the last couple stanzas are about how, inevitably, it's always done. Okay? So, once again, it's a giant metaphor about analyzing poetry. So, he says, I asked them to take a poem and hold it up to the light like a color slide. Okay? This was written in 1988. It probably needs to be a little bit updated. Maybe I asked them to hold a poem and zoom in close with their phone, you know. He's basically asking you to look at them, look through the poem, see what colors come out. Okay? See how it looks under different light conditions. Really explore. Or press an ear against its hive. Like it's a bee having something to say. He's really concerned about you looking at it, looking at the colors, listening to what sounds. I say drop a mouse into a poem and watch him probe its way out. Now he's not talking dropping a mouse onto the top of a page. It's like one of those science experiments where you have a maze, okay? Because poetry, it's supposed to be complicated. It's supposed to be hard to get to the core of it. And you need, you know, these super senses like a mouse sniffing cheese through a maze. So he says drop a mouse into a poem and watch him probe his way out. Walk inside the poem's room and feel the walls for a light switch. I'm sure we've all done this at home. We know where the light switches are. We know where the comfortable, familiar things are. Okay, think about finding yourself in a dark room in somebody else's home. How are you going to find that light switch? How are you going to shuffle around in the dark with your hands out in front of you until you hit a nightstand or a couch? Okay? A new poem is like finding yourself in a dark room. How are you going to get to that light switch, that light bulb turning on of understanding? That's what he's saying here. I want them to water ski across the surface of a poem, waving at the author's name on the shore. Okay? Once again, talking about having fun with the poem, about experiencing it, about letting it wash over you, about writing through it. Okay, if you look just even how the poem is set up on this page, how the author's name and the title are kind of stuck up top there. Okay, he's telling you have fun with it. Okay, now he switches. There's a tone shift right here. Look at but, always, however, but, also. All these are tone shifts. Okay, it goes from what he wants us to do to what we actually do. But all they want to do is tie the poem to a chair with rope and torture a confession out of it. Okay, so I'm on a deadline, I'm on a timeline, just tell me what the hell you mean. I don't want to have to sit here and enjoy and puzzle over it. Especially with students learning about poetry, it's I want the right answer, give me the right answer. And, you know, tying it up to a chair, you can imagine poem being tied up into a chair and tortured into tell me all your secrets, like some spy in the 1950s or 60s, right? They begin beating it with a hose to find out what it really means. Okay? students of poetry. We're told to get to the bottom. We're told what's happening in the poem. And a lot of times, for a lot of students, it's tough to get there. And the frustration shows in these last two stanzas. It's okay, just tell me what the hell you are. I'm tired of guessing. I don't want to hold you up to the light. I don't want to listen. Just tell me what's going on. Okay? There's a dichotomy there, especially in teaching styles of poetry. In order to get good at seeing things in poetry, you have to experience a lot of it. But in situations like an AP class, you're going to, there's always that pressure of what does it mean? How am I going to write well about it? Oh my God, I don't only have to figure out what this means, but then I got to put it into words, and there's always some time crunch, and there's always some, give me the right answer. And the truth about poetry is a lot of times it's not about the right answer. It's about the journey to get to the right answer. And this has been used in a lot of the beginnings of poetical studies, because you got to remember that these things aren't written, poems aren't written for us to sit here and analyze. Poems are written for the enjoyment of the writer, for the enjoyment of the reader, and to share a human experience. Okay? Now, the shared human experience for everybody in this class is, I need to get this done, I need to know what it means, because it's going to help me do well on the AP test and get credit for college. But I think sometimes when you're having problems with a poem, instead of beating a confession out of it, if you looked at it in a different light, if you listened to the sound devices, if you did some experimenting with it, or just sat back and enjoyed it, that these insights might come to you when beating the confession out of it won't shed any light on anything. Okay? So, quick little anecdotal, let's teach a lesson with the poetry. I'm going to do probably one or two more Billy Collins poems. I mean, this is what he's like. Another one called Marginalia. It's on page 1000. It's awesome. I'll go over that eventually. But let's remember, let's keep it light. It's only a poem after all. And let's remember that as we go on.